Hello and welcome to iBuzz. I'm your host Nashin Bukhari, bringing you the most exciting news from the entertainment industry. First things first, let me quickly take you to the top stories of the day. Louise Minkin to leave BBC Breakfast after 20 years. Jennifer Lopez lands Netflix deal to give opportunity to diverse female filmmakers and actresses. The Conjuring 3 scores biggest R-rated opening of pandemic, beats A Quiet Place 2. Blair Witch Escape attraction to open in Las Vegas this summer. And Suicide Squad 2 is James Gunn's best movie, says the star. And now moving to the top stories of the day. Warner Brothers' The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It earned an estimated $24 million according to studio estimates Sunday, making it the biggest R-rated opening of the pandemic. Paramount's A Quiet Place sequel, meanwhile, earned $19.5 million in ticket sales, bringing its domestic total to $88.6 million. To have further discussion on the subject, we have entertainment journalist Jamie Boddy joining us online from UK. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, The Conjuring Part 3 has defeated A Quiet Place 2 in the cinemas, doing a record business. In your opinion, is it because The Conjuring was already a well-established franchise, hence long awaited by the fans?
I think so, yes. The Conjuring it's like a legacy film, isn't it? There's 3 Conjuring films, the spin-offs with The Nun and Annabelle. So I think it's got a fan base, and even if you are a fan of The Nun or Annabelle, you will probably see The Conjuring. Plus, there's also that it's a kind of a mixture of real story kind of with a more of a Hollywood spin. So I think people like to kind of go, they like that escapism, to be scared with something that could or may not have happened.
Right. And also talking about the viewership, Warner Brothers did not report how many people watched The Devil Made Me Do It on their streaming services on HBO Max. How would you comment on that?
Yeah, I think because the box office success was possibly higher than a lot of people thought. I think they want to ride that wave for now, and then they can always back it up with the positive results from watching it on HBO Max. So I think it was a power play. I could be wrong, but I think it was a look how much we've secured already just from the box office, and then we can top it up with what the streaming is.
Right, but do you think that now it has become a fashion to, measure the movies according to the viewership on streaming platforms and not through the cinema goers or the movie goers?
I think definitely now streaming is such a big player with what happened with COVID and people paying more for subscription sites on HBO Max, Prime, Netflix, Disney Plus. That does have a lot of weight when it comes to the success of a film. So I think, yes, definitely the viewing figures, as long as they perform positively, I think we'll have a great kind of projection of how a franchise will go or how much money that company will reinvest in other future films.
Right. And Jamie, the question now is not where the franchise will go from here, but how much longer it can be sustained by this humdrum deviltry.
Yes, and I think they've done a really good job at spacing the films out from the first Conjuring in 2013 to now. They need to keep some momentum with it, but I think if they were to do too many, I think people would kind of lose the buzz, because I don't know if you've seen the other Conjurings, but for me, the Conjuring series were the first block of horror films in a long time that really made an audience jump. They hadn't lowered the rating to kind of more of, because sometimes with films, they maybe slightly try and tweak scenes so they can have more of a bigger audience. It appeals to more people, but I feel the Conjuring have stayed quite diehard to the horror genre. And they do make you jump. So I think the people that will go will continue to see any future films they make.
Right. And Jamie, some critics say that The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, should have stuck to the haunted houses. The story was, of course, different this time, but, the way they have established the franchise, going from house to house and, performing the exorcism and whatnot. What is your take on the criticism that the critics have come up with this time?
Yeah, it's interesting because although the film has performed really well at the box office, if you look on like Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb, the scores from the audience are lower than that of The Quiet Place 2. So I think there will be some loyal fans to The Conjuring that will miss that kind of that house that's set up. It gives you less spaces to explore, but therefore makes it a lot more scary because you're like, who's hiding in that room? There's no space for it. And then bam, there is someone. So I think, yes, the move away from that could open up a bigger pool of films, but is it slightly alienating some of the fans from the originals?
Right. No longer directed by James Wan, the previous director. This time the film is helmed by Michael Shabs, so the director of another epic horror movie, The Curse of La Llorona. Do you see or do you expect any difference in the directions this time?
I think, again, depending on how much of a diehard fan you are of the Conjuring films, you will notice some differences. But again, they have tapped into someone else that's familiar with the horror genre. So there'll be lots of elements of suspense and being scared when you don't know where it's going to come from. I would say you would expect it, but you just don't know when it's going to jump up. So I think there will be some noticeable differences, but it will still sit firmly in the same category. Because obviously La Llorona was in the same pool of The Nun and so on.
Right. Jamie, in your opinion, what differentiates this third film from the previous two parts, keeping the storyline? We've spoken about the direction point of view, but now keeping the storyline and the new cast in mind, what, in your opinion, what differentiates this third film from the previous two parts?
I think we know what to expect more now. Come the third film, we know what the couple are doing. So I think there's going to be a lot of people approaching this differently to be like, right, this is a really different setup. It's not just going to like a house situation and seeing how that unfolds. It kind of opens up a whole other sector of this type of film and genre to be like, right, we're in a new situation, new cast. Could that then, I think it also get people's minds spinning to be like, could there be a spin-off with this person, or looking for those Easter eggs? What else is hidden? Because we know in the first one in the house, we found the Annabelle doll, which then led off to other films. So I think there'll be a lot more guessing in this one because we know who the main two characters are, but it's a really different situation.
Right. And Jamie, of course, it's Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson who have kept the franchise alive. But talking about the supporting cast, who have always been there to, give us a very different view, how has it upped the game? I'm talking about The Conjuring on the whole, from part 1 to part 3. How do you think, or how do you see the supporting cast has upped the game of this franchise?
I think the films are very much, although Patrick and Vera obviously helm the ship, they lead it, the supporting cast really add to the suspense, the storytelling, and painting the picture of that scene. And whether you love them or you hate them, I think the supporting cast is very much an ensemble film. Because obviously the music and the cinematography, it all adds to the story. But I think the supporting artists, some of which you may recognize from other films, some of which may be new to you, really add to it. And then you do become a bit attached. So whether their character meets a sad end or comes over an obstacle, right, you kind of go there with them.
And Jamie, in your opinion, comparing these two movies in terms of business, A Quiet Place 2 with the Conjuring Part 3, do you think it's justified? Because A Quiet Place has a kind of different genre. We cannot completely declare it as a horror movie. It's a thriller, an action movie. So comparing it in terms of business with the Conjuring Part 3, do you think it's justified?
Yes, I think they share a lot of the same genre traits, but they are very, very different. And someone who likes The Conjuring, who likes to be scared, might find The Quiet Place not as scary. There are moments that make you jump, but I think with that, it's much more suspense-based.
It's a thriller, so yeah.
Exactly, and if someone who maybe doesn't want quite as much peril or drama, they might feel safer with A Quiet Place, and then slowly work their way up to the courage for the Conjuring.
And in your opinion, as a critic, as an entertainment journalist, if you had to pick between the two, A Quiet Place and The Conjuring Part 3, what would be your major pick, and why?
Oh, Oh yes, that's a very tough question. I've got a little bit of bias because I really love Emily Blunt and Jim. I love that they're a couple in real life. I love that Jim's written and directed the films. So, I think The Quiet Place slightly tips the scale in my favor.
Right.
But if I'm looking to be scared and I want that kind of adrenaline rush, it would be The Conjuring. But overall, The Quiet Place for me.
Right, right. Jamie, thank you very much indeed. It was a brilliant discussion with you.
Thank you for having me.
That was Jamie Body with his views on the new Conjuring Part 3. And now moving to other story details of the day. TV host Louise Minkin is to leave BBC Breakfast after almost 20 years. Minkin first presented the BBC One morning program in 2001 and became one of its lead presenters in 2012 when production moved to Salford. She told viewers she had loved being on the show, but it is time she stopped setting her alarm for 3:40 a.m. in the morning and is now looking forward to lots of fly-ins. She said she would leave sometime after the summer and would take lots of happy memories with her. J.Lo is bringing her behind-the-camera talents to Netflix. The celebrated star has signed a multi-year deal with the platform to create a wide-ranging slate of new female-driven and created projects. The deal made with Lopez Production Company will see Lopez and her producing partners, Elaine Goldsmith, Thomas, and Benny Medina, mainly shepherd projects that support female actors, filmmakers, and screenwriters. In a continuing quest to expand on its scary franchises and fill the demand for year-round horror, Lionsgate plans to open a Blair Witch-themed escape attraction sometime this summer. Although a specific date has not been chosen, Escape Blair Witch will most likely open in July. The tickets price from $44.99. Actor Joel Kinnaman believes that James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is the director's best movie to date. David Ayer's original Suicide Squad 2016 was ultimately a box office success, making $746.8 million worldwide. Still, it was savaged by the fans and critics alike for its inconsistent tone and characterization of classic DC Comics characters. This summer, Gunn is taking his shot at the task force, unshacking the squad from their previous restrictive PG-13 rating and making a movie that's just as much a soft reboot as it is a traditional sequel. Kinnaman will be reprising the role of Rick Flag, leading an unlikely team of new and returning allies into the line of fire. That is it from the newsroom. We will be right back after a quick short break. Stay tuned to find out more. Welcome back. Pakistani music community mourns at the loss of a great singer, Farhad Humayun, who passed away on Tuesday. Farhad Humayun was an English-born Pakistani singer, drummer, record producer, and video artist. He was popularly associated with the Pakistani drum jam band Overload, which he founded in 2003. Farhad started his career as an underground musician and formed two bands, Coven and Mind Riot, in which he played drums. He has identified, produced, and launched some of South Asia's top acts, such as Atif Aslam, Simth the Band, and Misha Shafi. Humayun has won numerous awards and accolades for both his audio and video work and owned Riot Studios, the famous recording studio and gig venue in Lahore. Unfortunately, Farhad Humayun left this world on Tuesday while battling against brain tumor. In this segment, we will pay tribute to Farhad by discussing his services to the music world. Joining us in the studios for discussion, we have a songwriter, song producer, and singer, none other than Arieb Azhar. Arieb, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Nosheen.
So, sad demise, untimely, of course. Tell us about Farhad as a friend, because you have not only worked with him as a professional, as a singer, but as you have told that he was your friend. So how was he as a person?
Farhad Humayun, it's indeed a sad day for the music industry of Pakistan, for the music community of Pakistan. Farhad Humayun was not just a brilliant musician and a great performer and a songwriter, but he was also a promoter. And in his Riot Studios in Lahore. He recorded many an artist. I did some recordings there ages ago as well. He produced some of the early songs of Misha Shafi, of Atif Aslam.
Yep. And Simth, the band.
Simt,
Yeah.
that's right. And then, of course, he was one of the founding members of the cult rock band of Lahore, Coven.
Coven, yes.
And then his band,
Mind
Mind Riot.
Yeah.
I got to know Farhad Humayun when I just newly returned from Croatia after spending 13 years there, and that was in 2003. And Farhad Humayun had just formed his Overload band with the great Pappu Sain of Lahore, the dhol player.
And it was a very unique concept back in 2003.
It was a really unique concept, and it was really close to my heart because I've always been inspired by folk music, and I myself consider myself as a folk music. So for me, it was the perfect combination of Farhad Humayun as this really dynamic, brilliant powerhouse of a drummer, combining with our great Darwish dhol player Pappu Sain in Shah Jamal. So basically, Farhad Humayun was one of those few pop musicians who actually was brave enough to step out of his comfort zone. And he used to go and hang out at Shah Jamal Shrine in Lahore, where Pappu Sain used to play it back then. And he used to set up his drum kit there and jam with Pappu Sain, and that's how Overload came about. So that's when I got introduced to him first, and then needed some recordings to be done in Lahore, so did it at his place. And he was always so friendly and open and supportive of anyone wanting to do anything new. So he was just a brilliant guy. He was a driven, really ambitious, hardworking, and disciplined. You have a lot of people who want to become famous in the pop music, but they're not willing to go through the hard work. And Farhad Humayun was not scared of the hard work. He was disciplined.
And it was very brave of him to experiment this genre of music back in 2003, when every other band was inspired by MTV, trying to become one of those pop bands from US or UK. But Farhad, like you said, that he came out of his comfort zone.
That's right. He wasn't scared to experiment with folk music. Now, mind you, this was at the time before Coke Studio had made folk music popular.
Exactly.
So back then,
so
folk
he can
music
be like
was
one
looked
of the
down
pioneers.
upon by the elite of society. They weren't, except for a few qawwals or maybe some legendary singer like Pathan Khan. The elite of Pakistan wasn't really into folk music back then. So Farhad was one of the pioneers to bring that into the mainstream.
Yes, in season 4 and 5.
4 and 5.
Yeah. So to a lot of fans' surprise, that he was battling with brain tumor, and he didn't, mention it. Even like there were no reports on the TV or social media. Some of the fans, they were in a shocking state when they came to know that he died. Little did they know that he was battling with cancer.
It was a total shock for me. I, of course, knew that he was battling with cancer. He had his surgery. He had a brain tumor. He had a surgery, I think it was around 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And it seemed that it had gone well. And he seemed to be getting back, his normal life and his normal routine. So I just presumed that everything is okay. I hadn't been in touch with him for a while. I'd been busy in my
And
things.
did he himself did not declare it? I mean, was he keeping it to himself?
He wasn't one to, like you have a trend today, even if you have a cold, you have to put it up on social media.
True.
And you have to take a photograph yourself with a sniveling nose. He wasn't one of those. He wasn't after this sort of fake publicity. So he was I think very reserved, and he kept his own what struggles he went through in battling cancer. Only he knows, and his close family, I'm sure. And also, I just like to. My heart goes out to the family, to his brilliant mother, Naveed Shehzad Saiba, who herself is a great writer, poet, academician. And Farhad lost his father, I think, about 12 years ago or something.
And his father was a cricket commentator.
His father was a cricket commentator, and apparently also used to have a good singing voice. So
right. So it's in the genes.
So it's in the genes. But of course, Farhad took it to new heights. And when his father passed away, Farhad called me up out of the blue, and he said that I need to just take a break, and I need to travel to Europe, and I need to travel to places I've never been before. So I'm thinking of going to Croatia.
Okay.
So if you could just point me in the direction.
Right.
So I linked him up with some close friends in Zagreb, and he went and stayed there for a few days.
So you being his remote tourist guide, right?
That's right. That's right.
Right. Let's talk about his performance in your program, Art Langar, and then South by Southwest. What sort of a performer, live performer he was?
Oh, he was a performer on fire. Farhad Humayun owned the stage, and he wasn't shy about it. He was totally, he was a pop
Owning
star.
it.
Yeah, he was a star. So first, of course, he performed at South by Southwest. Back then, I used to work with the foundation, and we'd organized our first music Mela festival at the PNCA in 2014. And one of the directors of South by Southwest had come to Pakistan through the US Embassy to check out our festival. And then he'd chosen some of the artists to come and perform from the festival at South by Southwest. And he'd happened to see Farhad Humayun's performance on YouTube at some student performance.
Right.
And he said, can we get him? Can we get him? So we spoke to Farhad Humayun, and of course then Farhad was one of the bands to be featured from Pakistan at South by Southwest. I wasn't present in that tour, so I've just seen the videos.
Right.
Later, when I started my festival called Art Langar in 2017, it was a 2-day festival, so we called Farhad Humayun to be the headlining act of the first night, and he killed it. He was brilliant. Yeah, so much more deeper for all of us.
Right. Arieb, in 2007, he gave a statement to a news magazine where he goes, "I know I'm on my own." Now, was that an indication towards his experimenting with the music, or was he like trying to tell people that he's struggling in this field?
In 2007?
Yeah, 2017.
In 17? I don't know what to say. I mean, there's always a struggle for, anywhere in the world to live off your art, to make art your profession. It's not easy. It's not an easy. If you want to be successful and make the most amount of money in the shortest period of time, you don't become an artist.
True.
So I don't know whether it was that, because I think Farhad was doing okay. I mean, he was getting by. Of course, in Pakistan, the music industry is a fledgling industry. We're all still working to set those systems in place that will make it into a thriving industry, because there's no shortage of talent. But of course, we lack those systems that can make it into a thriving industry, such as implementation of copyright laws, and such as venues where you can have live performances every weekend, and a whole festival circuit, which a bunch of us have been working on for years, but so much more work is required. So I don't know whether Farhad Humayun was alluding to that, or could it have been his own personal, physical, or his battle with his illness, or could it have been his mental state of mind? I really can't say.
Right. So, Arieb, in your opinion, how can the artist community, along with the fans, at least can try to repay Farhad and his services?
Well, I would say that the musicians community and the artist community, Farhad wasn't in need of anything himself. He came from a family that was, that was affluent enough for their needs.
Right. But in order to continue his name and his legacy.
But what Farhad was really stood for was, besides his own dynamic personality and his brilliant performance on stage, and just his will, which got a lot of people together. I think what the music community can do is just continue that legacy, and to keep producing new talent, and not only bringing new talent out, but finding out what can be done with the old talent, because that's what Farhad was about. One of his projects, which he did at his Riot Studios, was just these live sessions, which he was recording a lot of, and I know he was always in touch with some corporate sponsor or the other, trying to get funding in for the music industry.
And that studio itself is a great favor to the artist community itself.
Absolutely, it was one of the best studios of Pakistan.
Exactly.
So I think, that's what we all need to do, get our act together.
So it's a tough one, but I would like to know that what would you say as your last words, had you been knowing that it's his, last day on earth?
I would have just said, just keep doing what you do, brother. This is surely not the end.
Right. Arieb, it was wonderful having you in studios, and the discussion was brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Pleasure being here.
That was Arieb Azhar with his thoughts on the late Farhad Humayun. And that is it from today's episode. We hope you liked it. Don't forget to share your feedback on the social media link mentioned down below. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care and goodbye.